Hey folks, this is Screen Watching. My name is Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster, as is always the case. Simon, how are you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guten Tag, mein Fraus und Herren und Damen. How are you, mate? I'm well.
Oh, look, I'm doing fine, but just before we logged on, I started watching a TV movie from 1994. It's called Web of Deception.
Hell of a film.
Look, amazing film. Listen to this all-star cast.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold tight because things get pretty amazing.
What? Sorry, what year was it?
1994.
Oh, good year for TV movies. That was at the peak of the TV. Okay, give me the cast. Come on, baby.
It's never. Okay, here's this cast. Like, really, this is incredible. Powers Booth.
The late great, what a man. Great actor.
Pam Dawber from Mork and Mindy.
Oh, that Pam Dawber. Never really reached any spectacular heights, but made a career out of these sort of TV
Wait a
movies.
second. Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, well, yes, of course, Mork and Mindy, but didn't really parlay her Mindy fame into leading lady status. Or she did play opposite the great John Ritter in one of my favorite movies called, oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten the name of that. Stay Watching? What was that thing called?
Yeah, that was Stay Watching. But sorry, I'm just confused. Like, why would you parlay being at the top of a possible career into something lesser? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, that's Hollywood for you. Love it though. Pam Dawber. Is she still Mrs. CSI? What's his name? NCIS?
Mark Harmon.
Mark Harmon, yeah.
And yeah, they're still together. It's one of those enduring Hollywood couples.
That's nice.
Yeah. Also, Bradley Whitford in a fairly early role for him.
Wow. 94. So this would have been Happy Gilmore.
This is pre-Happy Gilmore. This is roughly at about the time that he saw his wife die on the table in ER.
Oh, so he's doing ER and then parlaying his ER fame into Web of Deception.
Okay. And this isn't the first time I'm going to mention ER in this podcast, so prepare yourselves. But in ER, the first episode that really became like a breakout moment.
Yeah.
And don't forget, this is the olden days of television where you can have an episode of TV that everybody's talking about the next day.
Sure. Watershed moment.
Absolute water cooler moment. So this is, I'm going to say 8 episodes into the run of ER, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a little bit further, but like it's kind of definitely first half of first season.
Good.
The show's chugging along. It's doing pretty well ratings wise.
Is it a Mimi Leader episode? Did Mimi Leader direct it?
Mimi Leader directed a lot of episodes of it, but not to get away from the points.
Sure.
Early in the run of the series, it's doing well ratings wise, but there's this one episode that comes along, and then suddenly after that episode, the show becomes a juggernaut. And it is this absolute, just heartbreaking episode where this guy and his wife come into hospital. She's, I don't know, it's like about 7 or 8 months pregnant. Like, you know, they're kind of there right at the end of it all. Ready to go. Everyone's all very jovial and very friendly, and everything's all going okay. She's just got feeling some minor discomfort about something, as I recall. Mark Green comes in. It's a fairly routine like check over. But anyway, by the end of the episode, you know, many lives are lost. You know, it's a heartbreaking, just emotional, destructive episode.
And very much sort of launched ER onto the path that it became.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But anyway, you know what I mean. Okay, so who else is in this movie?
I mean, that's really all we need to talk about. I could mention Rosalind Chow. She's in things.
Was she in? Oh, no, didn't.
You'd know her from the Joy Luck Club. She was in One. She's in Better Things.
Okay.
The Laundromat. Like, she's a constant presence on TV screens and has been for, 20, 30 odd years now.
You know what? We really should start the show.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
Not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover. What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Character actor Brian Markinson. Oh, screen watching. My name is Dan Barrett, joined here by Simon Foster.
I'm just out of a shower, mate. I've literally just washed my hair and toweled off, and I'm here fresh as a daisy, ready for this hell of a thing that we do called screen watching. So yeah, looking forward to it. An interesting lineup of reviews this week, my friend. We are running the gamut.
Look, we really are, and I think it's very nice of you that you just came to the podcast just wearing a towel.
Yes, well, I thought I ought to wear something. I've got it over my boobs though, which is good for that keeps the G rating on Apple iTunes, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. Anyway, you're right, Simon. We have quite a number of interesting programs and movies and whatnot to get through. I think you're going to kick things off talking about The Forgiven. I'm going to discuss a new Amazon series called Paper Girls. There's a French movie, a motion picture that looks very familiar called Murder Party. There's Honor Society, which is an original film streaming on Paramount Plus,
Wow.
starring Dustin from Stranger Things.
He's coming up quite a bit in our podcast lately. We've mentioned Gaten Matarazzo quite a few times. But hey, let's see what he's like outside of the Stranger Things universe.
Look, here's my spirit animal. And also, you're going to talk about Press Play, which is another feature film playing in cinemas.
It is a very sweet little film too. Can't wait to talk about it. Yes, and then we've got quite a busy podcast. I'm looking forward to our middle bit. I've given it quite a bit of thought for a change this week. So can't wait to get onto that one.
Okay, let's do some forward sizzle for that. This week on the screen watching middle bit, we are going to do the 2022 screen watching movie remake pitch. So myself and Simon have both chosen 3 movies that are all remakes, and we're going to pitch this the other one with the idea of getting a green light to go into production.
I am very excited about this. I think I found my calling as maybe a pitch guy because these just rolled off my psychological tongue, as it were. Good call on this one. This was your idea, and I'm very happy it came about.
Okay, Simon, everyone knows in Hollywood that the last thing you want is a critic to be there in the room because they've been there criticizing all of your other works and they're just making enemies across town. So before we start doing our pitching to launch our Hollywood careers, let's tear down some of these people.
It stinks.
Simon, can you please kick things off with The Forgiven?
Face it, David, we're lost.
That's the time.
No, it's not.
This is the time.
No, David.
It was so bloody stupid. An accident. Stepped out in front of us. We don't want the police showing up, poking their noses into everything. You got into a car with a drunk, which makes you an accessory.
I feel like I've been an accessory for a long time now.
Now listen, are you going to mope all weekend, or are you going to enjoy yourself?
It's not the time to enjoy yourself, you know.
I suppose I can make the effort.
This has high-end, high-class drama written all over it. It's made by the guy who did Calvary and The Guard, one John Michael McDonough. He is a director who has a real skill with actors and a very clever turn of phrase in his writing as well. He's put Ralph Fiennes and Jessica Chastain together as 2 very well-to-do British people, though clearly quite tired of each other's company, and sets them on a course to a party deep in the Moroccan desert. Along the way, they hit and all but keep driving after they've crashed into this young man who unfortunately dies. Now, word starts to get around the local villages that the 2 people who committed this terrible crime are at this very debauched party being held by Matt Smith, that's right, Doctor Who himself, and Caleb Landry Jones, who are a gay couple that have created this sort of oasis of debauchery in the desert. So what you have here is a real clash of infidels versus the traditional owners of the Moroccan land, and all the class warfare that also entails, which makes it sound far better than it is. This is a very strange, occasionally terrible, but not uninteresting film. It's got some very heavy-handed symbolism and some very heavy-handed social satire in there. Christopher Abbott plays an American who sort of stumbles into the party and is like the Jiminy Cricket role. He sort of goes around whispering in everyone's ear what the right thing to do is, but they desperately try not to do it in every case. An Australian actress, Abby Lee, I don't know whether her part was cut down from something far more important, but she walks through this film with the most broad Australian accent, saying things like, oh, I could suck a golf ball through a garden hose and things like that. So this strikes me as a movie, even at 2 hours, as something that feels a little bit unfinished. Having said that, you've got a real nasty turn from Ralph Fiennes as the very sort of snooty British alcoholic, high-functioning alcoholic, and Jessica Chastain doing a lot of coke and a whole bunch of other debauched things at this party. The real essence of the film is when Fiennes is taken off into the desert by the father of the boy who was killed and has to sort of come to terms with local customs and the mourning that they go through in the wake of a terrible death like this. So a really interesting film, I think a noble failure, but one that I must admit I couldn't take my eyes off, much like a car crash. So it's called The Forgiven. It's in cinemas in limited release.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in this in the slightest for a couple of reasons, but you kind of really brought me around with John Michael McDonough, who I really like the Cavalry. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. But it's very much unlike his last two films. They were very intensely character-driven parts with really like finely etched character portrayals. This one is quite a broad film, and the people up on screen are almost caricatures, very much stereotypes of those, you know, Brits or, you know, Western types in desert locations. And gorgeous looking film. It's beautifully shot against the desert, and the set they create for the party palace is really beautiful. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm just not quite sure to what end or to what purpose.
And Brendan Gleeson's not in it because he's in his other previous films.
He plays the Sahara.
The other thing that kind of caught me, and I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered watching this, is I always feel like I don't like Jessica Chastain. But then I think about, well, what has Jessica Chastain been in? And then I keep thinking, oh, wait, she also keeps on appearing in most of my favorite movies. Yeah, but I don't know what it is. I always just have this belief that she's just one of these actors who, you know, she just does her classier films and that's fine. And like, what does she have to offer me? And then I realized she has Jessica Chastain to offer me.
There's a bit of a chilliness about her in some of her performances, which I guess there's a bit of a Kidman-esque sort of quality about her in that she's a very technical actress. And when she's asked to play warm and fuzzy, it's not always as convincing as when she's deep in a character role. But those character roles don't always lend you to sort of being endeared to the audience. So maybe she's in that kind of bracket. But she's very good in this, although it's a fairly underwritten part for her. She has to do a lot of work to be noticed on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I keep on thinking of her, I guess, maybe in the context of things like in the show Scenes from a Marriage. And I keep feeling that she's that sort of a performer. But what I just, unless I actually really think it through, I just overlooked the fact that you see her in movies like The Eyes of Tammy Faye last year. And like, she was hugely bubbly and charismatic and, you know, quite the tour de force on screen in something like that. Then you think about her in, oh gosh, Miss Sloane, which was this really great underrated film from 2016, which it's about a Washington fixer. And
that was the Aaron Sorkin one, wasn't it?
No. It sounds like an Aaron Sorkin film. All the dialogue seems like it's Aaron Sorkin. It's not Aaron Sorkin.
But she made one with Sorkin, something about the party or something. I can't remember what it was called.
She did. What was that film called? Molly's Game.
Molly's Game, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a major talent, and she's a little bit wasted in this one. And this is also Ralph Fiennes playing that kind of sleazy, immoral guy that he's got down pat as well. And his character goes through the biggest arc in this film. Not always convincingly, but there's something about this film that doesn't convince, yet somehow remains eminently watchable.
Yeah, and she was in Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, Zero Dark 30 was a big breakout thing, wasn't it? That was the...
Yeah. Anyway, Simon Foster, let's move on. I've got a review to do. I'm going to talk a brand new Amazon Prime television series. It's 8 episodes. It's called Paper Girls.
Why does the sky look like that?
Move! Let's get out of here! Hey! Who's there?
What are you doing in my house?
What are you doing in my house?
I live here.
No, I live here.
That's her.
Holy shit.
The last month, I've been doing reviews in this podcast, and I've been finding very little that's been exciting me. All the while, I've had this in my back pocket because I knew this is a corker of a TV show and I couldn't wait to talk about it. Anyway, Simon, let's get cracking. When Stranger Things hit big, everyone was looking for the next Stranger Things, kind of ignoring that it was itself a pastiche of other movies and shows. But everyone wanted lightweight horror set in the 80s that tapped into a deep nostalgia vein. Of the wannabe media that came out since then, the one that probably got the closest to emulating what made Stranger Things what it is, without seeming too much like a wannabe also ran, was a comic book series from Brian K. Vaughan. It was called Paper Girls, and it was about 4 bike-riding 12-year-old girls in an Ohio suburb in 1988. They band together in the early hours of the morning after Halloween, the day after Halloween, and apparently that's the worst day you want to be delivering newspapers. They don't really quite say exactly why, but anyway. And then suddenly things start going really, really weird for them. Now, the comic was a smash hit, but a really quiet smash hit. And despite, because it was as cinematic as the comic book is, it was really quickly adapted to become the brand new 8-episode series for Amazon Prime Video. Writer Brian K. Vaughan, he's on board here to produce the show alongside the screenwriter of the series, Stephanie Folsom, and the original comic book artist Cliff Chang is also on board as an executive producer, alongside Wholesome Catch Fire producers Christopher Cantwell and Christopher Rogers. So quite the pedigree. As a TV show, it really embodies the spirit of the comic quite nicely, which is fantastic because that was a comic that was hugely compelling to read with surprises at every turn. Now, you'll enjoy the series a lot more without knowing anything about what the series is actually about. You won't want to know what the Stranger Things are in this show, but if you're the sort of person who needs a bit more of a sell, here's the blurb for the show. Everyone else, get your hands and just pop them over your ears right now because I'm about to do some spoilers. And Simon, you've seen the first episode of this. I don't know how much of you've seen. I don't know if you want to get your hands ready.
I never listen to what you say anyway, so keep going.
Okay, fine. Here's the blurb. 4 paper delivery girls are unwittingly caught in a conflict between warring factions of time travelers, sending them on an adventure through time in which they'll save the world. As they travel between our present, the past, and the future, they encounter future versions themselves and now must choose to embrace or reject their fates.
Wow, I'm hooked. That sounds really interesting.
What a sell for a show. You haven't reached the end of the first episode yet.
I know, and I'm already hooked. I love it. It was a terrific first episode, and that pitch sort of even won me over even more.
Okay, I'm not finished my review yet.
Oh, okay, good.
So the 4 young stars, they're all charismatic, and as is the way with such shows, they portray their characters with maturity and confidence of a person who's several years older than they're supposed to be. Each are really clearly defined, and once you spend a bit of time with them, you'll be very much invested in their stories and where things go for them. And that's especially an issue with the show, as we do see what becomes of our characters as we time travel and meet the future versions of our protagonists. Of the name actors in the series, the one I'll highlight is the comedian Ali Wong, who I always enjoy on screen. She's here as a future version of one of our paper girls. Now, frankly, I've already said too much. This show is great fun. I'm not wild about some of the cinematography in the earlier episodes, but it's a very deliberately chosen aesthetic, and I'd hate to punish a show for making some very clear, bold choices. There needs to be more of that distinctiveness in the TV and movies that we watch. Paper Girls, it's good, entertaining TV that you'll more than likely have you ordering the original comics online as soon as you finish watching it. Simon.
Yeah, look, I was hooked from that first episode. I thought the way all the 4 characters came together and created a fairly unique dynamic was really interesting and really good. And clearly as a homage to not only Stranger Things, but the 80s decade itself. I thought it did a good job in what I've seen so far. Yeah, so I'm going to return to it. Having not read the comic, I should point out, which I don't really have to say anymore. People know that I just didn't do the comic book thing, but I realize now that maybe I've missed some pretty terrific graphic novels, as I believe the kids call them, along the way.
Simon, do you want to do a little review for us?
Let's do a review. It's called Murder Party.
Bienvenue dans le manoir Daguerre.
Bouge pas, sale garce! Peut-être repasser, enfin, si vous êtes en pleine réunion de famille.
Le vendredi chez les Daguerre, c'est...
Murder Party!
It's French.
Yes, it is French. And make sure you put your podcast subtitling button on there when that clip comes up. Yes, it's called Murder Party. It's a very daffy, what's the other word I could use? Zany French comedy that stays just the right side of Jean-Pierre Jeunet-esque. He's the guy who did Amélie, Big Tick, and most recently did that awful thing on Netflix with the robots that I absolutely hated. And Murder Party falls somewhere in the middle. It tells the story of a brilliant architect played by the wonderful Alice Paul. She's got this new assignment. It's to renovate the sumptuous Daguerre mansion owned by an eccentric family or who've made their money from a gigantic board game empire. Now, when she arrives there, they're all playing all different types of board games. It's one of those sort of fantasy realism type of movies where nobody really acts like a real human, but you can sort of recognize different types of people in each of the characters. It's really like a big blown up version of the game Cluedo. Then to twist the film off into the second act, the patriarch Caesar is found dead, and everyone present becomes a suspect. All the while, they have 2 hours to figure out who done it, or they're all going to die. So this takes on a kind of board game mentality, but with the added threat of mass murder hung over it, which puts everything on a very high pitch. Not only pitched high in the plotting, is also the look and feel of the film. Everything is primary colors, bold reds and blues and yellows, which also sort of harkens back to the Cluedo type of storytelling, where you've got Mr. Green and Colonel Mustard and those sort of things. So in the end, it plays out at such a high-pitched level, it doesn't quite maintain it for all of its 103 minutes, but with some classic French actors in there, like the terrific Miu Miu, who was one of the sort of stalwarts of the French New Wave back in the 60s. It's great to see her back on screen, and with Elise Pole out front, sort of bringing all the craziness together in a fairly grounded performance. I got to say, I quite enjoyed this film. If you're a fan of movies, most recently, things like Knives Out. Knives Out? That's what it was called, wasn't it? You'll enjoy this one, I think, subtitles or not. So it's called Murder Party in limited release. And make sure you do head over to our YouTube channel, where I got to talk with the director, Nicholas Pleskov, through the week. He was in New York, and I was sitting exactly where I'm sitting now. And he had a lot of fun things to say about making this movie. So check it out on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, look, I was going to say, I don't need to see this movie because I've seen Knives Out.
Yeah, it's very Knives Out. With the added
it's not very Knives Out. It is very Knives Out.
There's also splashes of sort of Tim Burton-esque design work in here, which I found quite interesting. It sort of goes down the slightly more crazy path than Knives Out did, but otherwise it's very much of that whodunit. And the point you made about Stranger Things being a pastiche of other stuff, so was Knives Out. It sort of was just a re-energized Agatha Christie story, as exactly is this. So yes, this is very much a genre that has its place in cinemadom, and those that know what they're in for will enjoy it.
Now, if we want to re-trot out the word pastiche, let's talk about the new Paramount Plus movie. It's called Honor Society.
For me, high school is about getting out of high school. And I'm going to the #1 college in the world.
Honor, my best and brightest. I have a connection with the admissions people.
I had no idea. I knew this in 9th grade.
You are in my top 4 choices. I'm tuning the G string.
Wait, did you say top 4?
So a new entry into the teen genre of wiser than their years, know-it-all teenager who routinely breaks the fourth wall and addresses the audience is this new movie called Honor Society. And quietly, Simon, I love that genre.
So do I. Big fan. We're talking Ferris Bueller, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So look, and not to say that Ferris Bueller was the first to do it, but he's certainly one of the OG stars of this genre.
Absolutely.
Anyway, this one, it stars Australian Angourie Rice, an actor who's on the cusp of being the next big thing, as the titular Honor. That's right, her name is Honor, and the movie's called Honor Society.
That's clever.
Have you ever heard of a person named Honor before, other than Honor Blackman?
Oh, well, no, I was going to say Honor Blackman, but otherwise...
No.
No.
Also, I think that was Honor with a U.
No, it was OR, but it's really the only one I know. Honor...
Anyway, so I'm back to the review.
Of the reviews.
Honor, she's a high school student in what she views as a dead-end town, and her way out, she sees, is being admitted to Harvard University. That's right, she's got lofty ambitions. But in order to secure her spot, she needs a written letter of recommendation from the guidance counselor, who happens to be connected with Harvard student alumni. Now, he'll only give out one letter every year, and he's trying to decide which of 4 deserving students he'll do it for. Honor sets out to destroy her competition and secure her position as the recipient of the letter. Now, Honor's got 3 challenges. You got the neurodivergent cosplayer Kennedy, there's school hotness Travis, and dorky Michael. And we've all seen variations of teen comedies like this before, but what sparks joy in this film is it delights in subverting expectation where possible, while still keeping everything feeling very comfortable and expected. So like romantic comedies, the strength of the teen comedy is knowing that it's going to meet expectations and is familiar. Now, we know that Honor's going to come out the other end of the story with a stronger sense of character. We know she's going to know more about herself, and we know that she's going to better appreciate her friends and family at the end, because that's how the genre works. But what makes each of these films sing is the perspective and attitude that they imbue in the films. So consider some of the greats in the genre, the aforementioned Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Clueless, Superbad, 10 Things I Hate About You. All these films fall into line, meeting those expectations cited earlier at every turn, but each has a distinct tone of voice. And Honor Society falls slightly short of matching any of the best in the genre like those films, but it's still an upper tier entry. Now, where Honor Society sings is with the frank sexual honesty of the characters. It's often raw and designed to provoke shocked giggles from the audience. Some teen viewers may blush a little bit when confronted by it, but most of them will actually likely fire off a DM to their friends telling them they have to watch this movie. Writer David A. Goodman does a great job of lacing the film with all manner of dirty jokes that are still appropriate for a teenage audience. And keep in mind, Goodman's credits include things like Family Guy, and I think he's an Orville writer, to appeals to the Simon Foster demo right here. In less skilled hands, the approach that he's taken with this film would probably come off as a little bit skeezy, but it actually plays really well in the film. There's something about a adult man writing teenagers talking all dirty that, could give you the wiggles, but, it's fine. And Guri Rai, she does a great job at holding the film together. She's an absolute star in the making, and she delivers well here. At times, she comes off maybe as a little too sweet for the character, that on the page probably seemed written for an edgier, more sarcastic performer, but that sweetness actually helps defy expectations for what we expect from this sort of character in teen comedies. An interesting bit of casting is Christopher Mintz-Plasse as the sleazy guidance counselor with the power to write honor the letter of recommendation. His efforts to come across as a cool guidance counselor who plays in a band, they come off more than a little bit desperate, and his interest in honor is gross and obviously inappropriate. Now, obviously, he still carries within the baggage of being McLovin from the Superbad movie, and one could very easily come to a conclusion that the character he's playing here is actually the same character that he played as a teen. But also, he's playing a character that's not terribly far removed from the sleazy, nice guy that he played in a Promising Young Woman film from like about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Also on board for this film, as we mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, Gaten Matarazzo, aka Dustin from Stranger Things. For many viewers, this will be the first non-Dustin thing that they've seen him in, and he really shows he's got the potential in this to move on from being that weird-looking kid actor and graduate into proper grown-up roles. In this film, he plays the dorky Michael. He's composition that's dismissed initially by Honor as someone who could be easily manipulated, but the more she gets to know him, the more she finds herself interested in him, as you'd expect for this sort of thing in the genre. But Matarazzo, he actually needs to establish a perspective shift for the audience mid-film, and it's really impressive the way he handles it as he did. Honor Society is far wittier than most of the John Hughes films that the template for this kind of film was set with, and it's got a strength of writing, performance, and character development that stands taller than most films in this genre. It's even good enough to make you think there's the potential for a streaming service original movie to become a beloved film that may be revisited time and time again by an audience. And Honor Society, it's streaming now on Paramount Plus.
That is a very big call for the streaming sort of sector to have a film like that. Just to return to the Honor debate, there was Honor Ledbury. She played herself in The Real Housewives of Jersey, UK. There was
we're talking about real people, Simon.
We're talking about what?
Real people.
There's Honor Depensier. She was on the crew of a film called Love Child in 1996. And Honor Swinton Byrne, who was an actress in the film The Souvenirs. So thanks, Honors. Thanks for all you've done. That sounds like a really sweet film. I might look into that. I'm a big Angourie Rice fan. She's often the best thing in whatever she does. And yeah, I'm keen to see which of the Stranger Things ensembles sort of parlays their Stranger Things success into bigger and better things down the track. So
you know I'm putting all of my money on Gaten right now.
Oh, really?
Okay, because here's the comparison. And when you watch this, you'll be looking at it going, look, this is too big a comparison. And it sounds ridiculous that I'm even going to say it.
All right.
Okay, but I'm going to put it out there. Okay, you've heard it here first. When I was watching him in this film, okay, and like, I don't think his performance in the film is especially amazing, but he shows that he's got real potential to grow into someone who's actually really quite good.
He seems like a natural performer. He seems good in front of the camera. Yeah.
He does. And he doesn't like just rest on charm for this either. Like, I think he's a very charming performer, but he doesn't do that. Like, he actually holds that back, which I think is really important. But the bold thing I'm going to say is watching him in this reminded me so much of seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman in movies where he's playing like a romantic lead. You know, when occasionally you get one of those rare films where he's a little bit more like, I mean, something like State and Maine, where it's not the typical sort of performance for him. And he's just playing like a real life person who's, you know, involved in some sort of romantic entanglement or something.
That is
Like,
a
I was
huge
kind of
call.
getting that vibe off him. I'm not saying he's that good by any means, but if in a couple of years' time we're talking about Gayson as being one of those great character actors, like that's kind of the mold that I think he falls into, because
You wouldn't
he's
be
not a
surprised.
traditional looking actor by any means.
Okay, no, he's not. He's not. Okay, so it's called Honor Society. It is on one of the streaming platforms. I know you've said it twice now.
To be Paramount Plus, sir.
Wonderful. We're going to wrap up this review segment with a little film called Press Play. Press Play.
You are now recording the very first song on our mixtape.
You're gonna think I'm crazy.
No, I won't. What?
I'm from the future.
Like hoverboard future?
I'm not kidding. You're gonna die.
This one is creeping into cinemas for what feels like what they used to call a filler, in that there was a few screens between the bigger releases, so they whack out a film like Press Play. It is a Hawaiian shot romantic fantasy in which a young woman played by Clara Rugard, who we last saw as the young girl in I Am Mother, the sci-fi show that was shot in Adelaide, sci-fi film, pardon me, that was shot in Adelaide. She falls for Lewis Pullman, who's a young record shop owner, and they start making these beautiful mixtapes together. Things turn terrible, as you heard in the clip there, when Lewis's character is unfortunately struck down by a car. Gee, there's a lot of car accidents in my films this week. But what young Clara finds is that when she when she plays the mixtape that he made for her, the moment when they first heard that song together, she is transported back to. So this gives a time travel element to this sort of weepy romantic film, which I found thoroughly charming. I guess if you had to find a comparison to it, you have to go all the way back to Somewhere in Time, the Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour film, which was a far more sort of serious drama of its kind. But Press Play just has this real charm that starts to unfold over you. They're not over-reliant on sort of dog whistle use of music. There's a lot of great songs in here, but none which automatically throw you back to one of your own sort of teenage memories, early romantic memories. And on top of all that, you've got the wonderful Danny Glover in there as Lewis's older friend who also works at the record store. I got to say, this movie is a very sweet, very charming, a little bit teary film that I think would obviously sound like a really good companion film to the one you just reviewed. It's not a bad week for teen content. It's called Press Play. It'll probably go to one of the streaming services very soon. Like I say, it's just filling a few cinemas in the weeks ahead, but definitely worth catching.
Yeah, I feel like there's never been a better time to have filler content to fill cinema screens with.
There's like that at the moment. A lot of the big films are starting to wind down. It's still a couple of weeks before Bullet Train comes along, which will fill up a lot of screens. But yeah, there's a few things creeping back into cinemas that aren't the Top Guns or the Thors or the Marvel stuff that's often out there. And this is a good one. Go and see this. If you want to get out to the movies, you could do a lot worse than this. Great family movie, in fact. There's nothing too offensive in there. I mean, apart from getting hit by a car, but it would be great to take your teenage son or daughter to have a watch with.
Did I tell you I got along to go and see Thor?
No, you finally saw. Okay. Well, do we do it now or save it for the what have you been watching? What else have you been watching segment?
Let's not even do it.
Oh, really?
Hey, Simon, exciting things to talk about. How about we talk about the middle bit?
I love the middle bit. I'm so happy when this comes around. I'm especially excited this week because you've created quite the exciting challenge for us. Do tell.
Yeah, so something that's been on my mind the last couple of days is just remakes, and I just came up with this silly idea where I know that Simon loves pitching creative and endeavors.
Yeah.
And so I thought, let's pitch some remakes to each other. So the premise of the segment is this. We're going to pitch each other 3 films each. Okay, we're going to choose one beloved movie we want to remake. So like a Back to the Future or something, which we all know what it is. It's a beloved film. It probably should not be touched.
No.
Yeah. So it's a beloved film. Let's not touch it. But we're going to do it because it's 2022 and you just make remakes of everything. If there's a recognized IP, there's a remake. So we're doing one beloved film, one film that's completely forgotten, or, largely forgotten, just, it's a trifle film. And then one film that's just like a misfire. So one film that, you know, it should have been great because the premise is really awesome, but here's the opportunity to right the injustice that previously happened.
I'm very excited about this. You can't believe how thrilled I am to be able to talk about this because I think I've really nailed the premise. I've got 3 that people will be talking about in years to come.
Okay, Simon, hit us up. Let's go beloved first. Like, what movie classic are you going to destroy with your remake?
12 Angry Men in 1957, an ensemble.
You're going to choose this one. I knew it.
An ensemble of great actors: Henry Fonda, Jack Klugman, Jack Warden, Lee J. Cobb, E.G. Marshall, Martin Balsam, under the direction of Sidney Lumet, made one of the classic courtroom thrillers. It all takes place in the jury room. It's a New York City murder trial. One single member of the jury still has some skepticism, some cautious sort of aside about what went on during the trial. And before jumping to a hasty verdict, they have to go over and over the evidence. Now, in 2022, 12 Angry Men becomes a minutia of society. So instead of having 12 white males in the room, first of all, you make sure you lock down what they call 4-quarter talent. So you have the Mark Ruffalo's, the Adrian Brody's, the Jack Black to play some of the jurors, but you also work in there Michael B. Jordan. You also work in there Stephen Ewan. You have Britt Marling. You have Zoe Saldana. Now, this is where I'm going to shock you, but I think this very confined setting, this hotbed of social issues that will all come up in the casting and in the depiction of these characters and their lives and their roles as jurors would be perfectly handled by one Aaron Sorkin. And I think that he would make almost this generation's Few Good Men in terms of how entertaining it would be as a courtroom drama, but also how meaningful it would be as a social drama as well, as a bit of a snapshot of the time. So I think 12 Angry Men, boom, big hit, cinema hit, not a streaming hit. This has to go up on the big screen, bring people back into cinemas and make intellectual cinema also blockbuster movies. You see?
I've heard your pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm not greenlighting this movie.
What? Are you kidding?
You know why not?
No.
Because this movie has been remade so many times already, Simon.
No.
So many different forms, as TV movies, as individual episodes of TV shows. Right now, there's a really terrible Foxtel series called The 12, which is exactly what you've pitched, not with a star talent, but pretty much the same thing.
The star talent is important.
And Australia.
None of those versions of it have hinted at the importance that the representation on screen. This could this deserves.
Simon, have you watched the program? It is exactly what you're pitching me. I'm not giving you $120 million for this. It's not happening. It's off the table.
Fine, I'm taking it to Canal Plus. They've already expressed interest.
Okay,
all right, let's hear yours. What's your beloved movie?
Okay, so the movie I want to pitch to you is a remake of the 1971 Walt Disney production, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. No, I'm being cynical. Bring it on.
Okay, so look, I haven't gone into anywhere near as much depth as you have in terms of constructing what this would actually be representative of. But I'm thinking, look, here's the thing. It was a beloved film I watched as a kid, but when I was a kid, I found the narrative really confusing. Okay, and what I found confusing about it was I didn't really understand that it was a period piece. And it was only like right at the end when suddenly the Nazis are knocking down their door that I'm like, wait, what's going on here? I don't really understand. Weren't we just under the water? Like, since when was this in World War II? Why are these British kids concerned about German Nazis? Like, none of that ever made any sense to me. And I kind of feel that this was a movie which, and this is the secret with making a remake of anything, which is that you actually don't want to be remaking anything that's too good. I mean, Simon's gone, I'm just going to remake one of the greatest movies of all time.
It was the beloved movie section. That was what you meant to do. You're going to do, okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, but Bed Knobs and Broomsticks is beloved, but it's not great. I think that there are problems with it. And I loved it as a kid, but I found it confusing, and I never really quite understood exactly what was going on and why.
Right.
Okay, so I feel we can bring some clarity to it. I think that the film was never really amazing. I feel that our cast could be better. And here's the 2 cast members I'm going to throw at you. Okay, so we've got Angela Lansbury, okay, who was originally in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Yeah.
I say we replace her with the aforementioned Jessica Chastain. It's got to be one redhead for another.
Sure, okay, this is exactly what Jessica's career needs right now. Sure, go on, yep.
I mean, why isn't it? Why wouldn't she want to be in my Bed Knobs and Broomsticks movie?
Let's see. I'm sure everyone has to. Is it a franchise pick? Can there be bed knobs 2, more broomsticks or something like that?
Oh,
more bed knobby.
Too many bed knobs, too many broomsticks with a sequel. Look, the obvious thing to do would be getting Lin-Manuel Miranda involved in this, because that's usually what you do these days. But here's the thing, I'm not going to do that. One of the things that is, deeply memorable to me about the original film was the character played by David Tomlinson. Okay, and my memory is he's got a really handsome moustache. Okay, so I'm not going to go for like a young sort of, hip person to be this character. Like, I want an actual character. Yeah, I want someone who's unusual and someone that can wield a fancy ass moustache like that. So here's why I'm bringing out of mothballs here. I'm bringing out celebrated American independent movie director, John Waters.
Oh my God.
John Waters, Jessica Chastain, and this is going to be a $300 million picture.
The fantabulous contraption of Dr. Huffnagel. Look,
tell me you don't want to see this.
It's not that I don't want to see it. I don't know if anyone else will want to see it. It seems like a very antiquated film. I don't see any contemporary relevance in bringing back bed knobs and brooms. How would you make it appeal to? Nobody has bed knobs anymore, and they all use Zoomers. What's that thing? That's that robot. No one's got brooms. Who uses brooms? All right, I'm going to pass on this. I'm going to throw it back to one of the lower executives, get them to workshop it a bit, see if we can come to sort of a more approachable angle. We'll have our people call your people, and maybe we can work this into our third quarter projections. So thank you for coming, and make sure to validate your parking on the way out.
Okay, you just stole my parking validation joke, but go on.
Okay.
Simon, tell me, what is the forgotten movie that you're pitching me?
In 1983, a beautiful and brilliant young actress called Bonnie Bedelia starred opposite Beau Bridges in a movie called Heart Like a Wheel. It's an early film from director Jonathan Kaplan, who went on to do The Accused. It's the true story of...
This really is a forgotten title, isn't it?
Yeah, you know this one. It barely got a release here in Australia, although I think she won a Golden Globe or was nominated for a Golden Globe for it. It's the story of Shirley Muldooney. She's determined to be a top flight drag racer, although no woman has ever raced drag cars before, and despite the high risks of this kind of racing and the burden it places on her family life, she perseveres in her dream. Now, what better, more cinematic moment in our cultural history could a reworking of Heart Like a Wheel be? This is the perfect vehicle, no pun intended, for Daisy Edgar Jones to star opposite Channing Tatum, and for Tatum and a man named Reed Caroline. They both directed the film Dog last year, which was a real sort of mid-state, flyover state hit. And they could do the same thing with Heart Like a Wheel. It would give Daisy Edgar Jones that serious sort of biopic portrayal credibility you need to get in Oscar talk. It puts Channing Tatum in a different kind of role. He's not just the hunky sort of leading man, but gets to play a fairly nasty character, the kind that Beau Bridges played in the original. And I think with the way racing cars and drag racing could be shot, I think it'd be a great big cinematic adventure. So the movie is Heart Like a Wheel. I've already got some of the funding from a crowdfunding campaign, and I hope to move on it. We just need a few $1,000s more from you to start shooting. Daisy's on board.
Define a few $1,000s.
Several million.
Okay, this is really going to be budget dependent. So look, let's get in contact with the accountants and see what we can wrangle here. Like, I'm not saying no, but let's talk through the figures.
Good, that's good. That's positive. Thank you. It's going to be a hit, kids. I'm going to call Daisy. She's expecting a call.
Okay, I'm going to call security.
All right, what's your forgotten movie? How do we work this?
Okay, so look, I've got like 1.5 that I want to like drop in here. So the first one's a film. I mean, neither of them are like truly forgotten, but like they're not necessarily, no one's talking about them like the Shawshank Redemption or anything.
Sure.
So the first one I'm going to pitch is, it's not actually technically a remake, it's a sequel.
Okay.
The 1994's The Paper.
Yes, you mentioned this last week, which is a film I'm very fond of. I went and saw this on my birthday in 94, so I'm keen to see where this goes. It's going to be hard recasting a certain person, but give it a shot.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. So here's my pitch for it, which is that this is a 1994 film. As far as I'm concerned, this is in continuity. Everything that happened in this movie is still there, but it's 2022 and we catch up with not all the cast, because it's a newsroom. So, like, you know, people come and go, and most of these people would be well and truly retired by now, with the exception of Michael Keaton, who is now the editor of the newspaper. Okay, he now occupies the role that Robert Duvall played in the original film.
Sure.
And it's him dealing with a cast of journalists every week that get in. We talked about this last week, and that there needs to be more movies about journalism.
Yes, we did.
This is exactly it. And so he's now the editor of the paper. He's kind of just settled into being an older statesman in the newsroom. And he's dealing with a young junior editor like he was in the original film, who's feeling a little bit listless and doesn't quite know what he wants to do with his life. Is he necessarily in the right place? Is he at the right paper? Maybe there's his wife's also giving like birth in the same way that Marissa Tomei was in the original. Like, you just pick it up. You follow similar beats to this film, but you stretch it out. This is my 10-episode Netflix series.
Okay. Now that's got me interested, because I didn't think that a newspaper room would have the vibrancy and the urgency. I think there'd be a fairly depressing place to set a film in this day and age, other than unlike back in 1994. But I think as a 6-episode arc instead of 10, and maybe not have it in a newspaper room, but have it in the office of a blog.
Oh, no, I mean, there'll be bloggers there.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay, look, I'm not against this. I agree with you that there needs to be more stories about journalists, and that there's a lot of potential in the narratives therein. So, okay.
Okay, but here's the other movie I'm pitching. And this is probably a film that's remembered by film types, but I think broadly in the general consumer community, I don't know it's really particularly that well remembered. I want to remake the 1963 Jane Fonda film, Sunday in New York.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite romantic comedies, Neil Simon and Robert Redford. So this has been kind of done.
Simon, one of your favorite movies?
Yeah.
Do we want to backtrack and talk about the fact we're talking about Sunday in New York and not Barefoot in the Park?
Yes, we ought to backtrack. These are moments like where I wish I could edit my YouTube channel. But
okay.
All right, well, let me hear it. Sunday in New York, yes.
This is a film that was directed by Peter Tewksbury, apparently. Not a name I'm familiar with before I just read that on the screen.
One of the great forgotten auteurs.
Okay, so the premise of this film... Sorry, that's me putting my drink down. Jane Fonda's a young lady. She's in a relationship with... who's her boyfriend in it? It's... gosh, sorry, I'm just going to cheat now and bring up Wikipedia.
That's all right. Keep talking. I'll do the Wikipedia.
In a while. Her boyfriend is played by Robert Culp, the late Robert Culp.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he's trying to get her to sleep with him. Like, you know, they've been around. And don't forget, this is the early 60s. And like, she's she's a good girl. You know, they don't do that sort of thing just yet. You know, they're not married. You know, there's still a lot of dated things. So my remake would be a modern film. So we'd get rid of that aspect because that's just kind of, you know, very antiquated, not really there. Sure. But she's having trouble with her boyfriend. Okay. So she goes to visit her brother who lives in New York City, the big city. And so she's there to like just try to get some advice and just try to regroup and settle herself. Now, her brother, as I recall, is a pilot, and he ends up being called away to like replace another pilot who couldn't make the flight or whatever. So she suddenly finds herself in this apartment in New York by herself like a day or two. And so she ends up leaving. And guess what day of the week it is, Simon?
Just Sunday, Saturday. Yeah, Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she ends up just going into the city, like just take a bit of a wander around, and she's taking a bus ride and bumps into a guy, literally bumps into her. She's got like a little brooch like on her thing and gets it caught in his jacket. And so they've got like this sort of meet cute, which is really awkward on the bus. But anyway, she ends up getting involved in this guy, and she ends up bringing him back to her apartment.
Oh, hello.
Her brother's apartment, technically. Anyway, her boyfriend has decided that he's going to come and try to win his girlfriend back. So he comes and knocks on the door, and then there's like a farce where the guy that she's just picked up, which I think is played by Rod Taylor, he then pretends to be the brother who the boyfriend hasn't met. And, you know, it's a high-level shenanigans, like, you know, it's a wacky comedy.
A lot of door slamming, a lot of people hiding under beds.
I mean, it's not quite a lot of door slamming in that it's a, what do you call that sort of apartment where your bathroom and everything's all under one?
Studio loft.
It's a studio loft apartment. So there's no door slamming, but there is lots of hiding under sheets and ducking behind pot plants and that sort of thing. Anyway, it's a very charming film. My pitch is Jane Fonda, obviously not coming back for the remake. No, but what about the aforementioned Angourie Rice?
Nice.
We shift it around. We also play around with, obviously, and it's not going to be a situation where she's being pressured into sleeping with her boyfriend, which spices her run away. It's just generic relationship issues. Okay. But what happens if the person that she ends up meeting on the bus isn't one like Rod Taylor type character, but instead I'm going to pitch that as a young lady, and I'm going to suggest Jasmine Savoy Brown, who people may have seen in Scream 2022. She was the young African-American lady who I think completely stole that movie.
Sure.
I think she's incredibly charming, incredibly charismatic. And so it's the two of them falling in love around New York City with the hijinks that come into place when the boyfriend turns up, and you got to deal with the sister who's a pilot, okay, returning back home and everything that happens then. What do you feel?
My first instinct is to try to get Peter Tewksbury back on board, but he passed away in 2003, unfortunately.
Did he make anything else?
No, he did a lot of television work after that.
Okay.
He did Nanny and the Professor, one episode of that not long after he shot this. So unfortunately, we won't be working with Peter again. Look, I'm not against regenerating the romantic comedy from...
Sorry, the one aspect of this that I didn't really sort of bring up is that I don't want this to be a period piece.
Right.
I really like, remember that film Down with Love starring Ewan McGregor and Renee Zellweger?
Yes, I do.
It was a very colorful throwback to like a 1960s screwball comedy.
Sure.
It would have that same color and vibrancy, but be a modern movie.
Like La La Land. We're pitching it as the next La La Land.
A little bit, but set in New York City.
Okay. All right. I can see this sort of coming together. This could happen.
And not a musical.
We'd have to work on the contemporization of it, because it is a very dated premise, and we'd have to be careful how we handled that. You know what? I'm going to give you a go. I want you to go off. I'm going to bring a couple of staff writers in on this to help you flesh out the characters.
I'm here as a producer.
Okay, well, I will put a few of my team on it with you to try to establish costs and maybe move forward, look for a late 2023 release, maybe in time for the Oscar season. I'm very confident, Dan. That's a hell of a pitch. I think you've got a winner on your hands.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, Simon, let's talk about Misfires.
Misfires?
Yeah.
You lead me off. What do you mean misfires?
Well, this is our third film that you're pitching. A film that's
right. Oh, God, it was still on the middle bit. Oh, okay. All right. So the movie was a great idea, but the execution was awful. Okay, mine is a 2012 film called One for the Money. It starred Katherine Heigl. It was a terrible flop. It was kind of meant to be her franchise starter. It's based on one of 18 best-selling Stephanie Plum novels. She plays a real loser who is given a job by her cousin as a bail bonds person. And she sets about trying to bring down a former vice cop and murder suspect who also broke her heart back in high school. So the opportunity is there to turn this into a very tough, take away the rom-com silliness element to it and turn it into a weekly series of adventures where this woman, bail bonds person, Stephanie Plum, gets to go on all these different type of adventures. We have two of Australia's best exports, actress-wise, in Yvonne Strahovski and Samara Weaving, in line for the title role. And I'm going to bring on board the showrunners of the series 24, Robert Cochrane and Joel Surnow, to maybe shepherd this into production. I think we're on a winner here. One for the money. You've already got 18 plots in the bank because of the novels, and then from then on we just roll in the cash, baby.
So look, I like the pitch. I like the idea. The problem is I've already got commissioned a remake series of Karen Cisco in the works. And I kind of just feel it's too similar.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there was so much potential in the Katherine Heigl film that went unfulfilled. There's still a huge audience out there who bought the novels that are now just, growing fat and old on the couch. And that's our target audience.
Look, I totally get it. I think you're going to have to run through this at a different studio. Like, I've already got, writers on board. It's already going ahead. Karen Cisco, 2023. It's in place. I'm surprised you haven't heard about it in the trade publications yet.
Yeah, well, the buzz on the street is that it's DOA, dead in the water. It's not, you've got the wrong creatives attached, and I think I'll bring them over to my show. So that's fine, baby. I'll see you on the next pitch. We're out of here.
Okay, fine. I can tell you why One for the Money didn't work back in, was it 2012?
It's awful. It's got a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a terrible film. It's got the prettiest poster. I really like Katherine Heigl, and it's got this really lovely sort of art. And every time I see it on a DVD box, I go, oh, I'm going to give that another go. I want to watch it again. And I've tried to watch it twice, and I get like 20 minutes into it, and I'm out of here. It's awful.
Yeah, no, pass. But like, here's the reason. It's not just Katherine Heigl and the fact the film's generally terrible, I'm sure. But look at the cast of that. Who's the male lead in it?
Someone O'Mara, Jason O'Mara, or
Jason O'Mara, who they've tried trotting him out to be the lead of so many different TV shows. He was the lead of the US Life on Mars. Like every time you get trotted out with Jason O'Mara, it's always just a turkey.
Wow, he's the kiss of death. He's the, who was that guy from Happy Days who kept turning up and on the Love Boat?
Look, I'm tired of people.
Ted McGinley. All right, let's wrap this up. What's your movie with a great idea?
Jason O'Mara stars of shows like Injustice, Life on Mars, Terra Nova.
Yeah,
come on.
He needs a new agent.
Yeah, really does. Yeah. Although I'm kind of curious about seeing Injustice. It's a Robert and Michelle King TV series that I've never seen.
Okay.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm sure it's better than Jason O'Mara would suggest. Anyway, the final thing that I'm pitching is, and let me just see what year it was. Like, that's pretty important. Okay, typing it into the magical old Google box, 2005.
Okay.
2005 comedy film, Rumor Has It, starring Kevin Costner and Jennifer Aniston.
Sure. Remember fondly.
Yeah, so the premise of this movie was that it was a sequel, quasi-sequel of sorts, of The Graduate. It's about a woman who's a little bit listless in life. She ends up going to a family wedding, and she ends up hooking up with an older guy who, it turns out, is kind of the inspiration for the Ben Brantley character from The Graduate.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's a great premise for a movie, but the execution of it was a terrible, terrible movie. Now, this is a film that went through like quite a bit of production problems. So Ted Griffin, who's the guy that went and created a little show called Terriers, which is the greatest show that I know that Simon hasn't watched.
I haven't seen that, no.
Fantastic show. Find it now on Disney+. He created this great TV show, and fans of that show will be like, wait a sec, this guy's amazing. Let's hear what Dan has to say right now. Basically, Ted Griffin was supposed to be directing this movie as well, as I recall. He got fired off the project, and they brought in Rob Reiner, who just shaved all the edges off it and just became like this really just terrible romance comedy film. So I'd always love to have known what that original Ted Griffin version of the film was, but we'll never know that. But here's my version. My version is that we're going to use this to make a quasi-sequel actually to The Graduate. Okay, so we're going to take the elements of The Graduate that make sense. Okay, so if you think about The Graduate, what worked was that you got that central performance with the listless character, the Dustin Hoffman character, and like that's supposed to be something that we can relate to. We understand the spirit and the comedy of it all. And obviously this is going to be much script dependent, so you know, we can only talk so much in the pitch right now. But one of the things that makes that movie sing is that it's not just about that performance, it's not just about the idea, it's about the entire production. And one of the driving forces of that production is that amazing soundtrack by Simon and Garfunkel. Now, I'm not proposing that we bring Simon and Garfunkel back to create the entire score, but why don't we find a promising young band of whom are on the up right now, much like Simon and Garfunkel were back in 1964, 67, thereabouts, mid-60s, okay, to occupy that Simon and Garfunkel role, but to produce the entire soundtrack for this. And we do this as a film of a woman who is a little bit later in life, but still feeling that same sense of ennui, that's still trying to work out where she is in life, what does it actually mean? And if we are going a bit later in life, maybe we don't find a promising younger band. Maybe we look at something like, say, the Shins, or a band like that, that are maybe sort of in their, like, you know, mid-40s at this point. Okay, and we sort of play it from that angle. So it becomes more about maybe midlife and much in the same way that the culture has shifted from being necessarily that younger people are expected to have all the answers like at that age. Now people are supposed to have all the answers like when they're in middle age and don't anymore. So maybe we play around with those themes. But effectively, it's rumor has it. I don't know that we can necessarily bring back. Actually, you know what? No, Jennifer Aniston's a bit too old for it now. So maybe we bring back, oh gosh, I don't want Katherine Heigl. That's just going to be a recipe for disaster. I don't know. This is still casting. I'm still working my way through it.
Still working your way through it. I think we are treading on very thin ice whenever we try to suggest that we're trying to recapture anything about the lightning in a bottle that was The Graduate. I think in your pitch, you're ignoring the fact that The Graduate very quickly became the voice of an entire generation of young people who were disenfranchised and
Here's the thing. I'm not interested in young people. I want people in their late 30s, early 40s to relate to this.
who may not know what The Graduate is. So I'm getting concerned about where we can. I'm getting concerned about where we would promote this film and how it would work.
People in
what is it a series? Is it a series or is it a film, or what are we talking about?
Oh, well, rumor has it was a movie, so we're going to stick with it as being a film.
I think this is going to need a whole lot of workshopping and a whole lot of focus group input to try to make it work. You know, I'm all for the, focus groups writing and contributing to anything creative. So let's get it in front of with our marketing people and see if they can see a way to make this work.
Yeah, that's right. The world's always made better when marketing get involved.
Oh God, that middle thing.
I'm backing my project away from the studio. This is clearly not the right place for it.
Well, I'll put the press release out saying that it all fell apart due to creative differences. The middle bit's over.
Okay, Simon, at this point in the pod, we talk about what we've been watching.
Yes, well, what have you been watching? Because quite frankly, there's a hell of a lot here. You've spent a lot of time in front of the television this week.
I mean, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I've just watched 4 or 5 things. It's not like it's huge investment of time. It's just
I don't know what is that first one of yours there?
Okay, so this is the show that I was going to review on the podcast this week.
Right.
But I think I used this phrase last week. I'm going to reuse the joke, which is if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Oh, it's called Surface. It's on Apple TV Plus. Why should we be avoiding it?
Look, so this is a show. It's got Gugu Mbatha Raw in it.
Right.
Okay, and I think she's generally quite good, and she's easily the best thing about this show. But the premise of the program is that you've got this woman that she plays. She's had memory loss in the last 10 months of her life.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So she's trying to find her way back into the world. Okay, so she's finally ready to go back to work. She's been slowly reintegrating with her friendship circle. She's been, seeing her boyfriend. But the reality is that she doesn't have a connection with any of these people because she doesn't know who they are.
I remember.
So she's constantly being told that, this is who your friends are.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't really feel anything for them. But
Overboard style.
Sorry?
Overboard style, like Goldie and Kurt Russell back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, but less wacky and zany.
I like wacky and zany.
Yeah, well, this would probably help this program. But this guy turns up and is like, everything that you've been told by everyone is a lie.
Yeah.
And so then, the mystery begins.
Well, okay.
Look, here's the thing. It's not terrible TV. It's perfectly watchable, but it's just a little bit dull. And you've kind of seen it all before. When she ended up losing her memory, it's from some sort of incident where she's gone overboard off a boat. But the thing is that every single movie where somebody loses their memory is because they've gone overboard on a boat.
Exactly, like Goldie and Kurt. It's exactly like Overboard.
Or like The Bourne Supremacy, or like that TV series John Doe, or anything else. And pretty much they're all shot exactly the same way. Yeah. And I've just got no time for it anymore. So This is treading some very, very tired waters. It's from Reese Witherspoon's production company, Hello Sunshine. And I can't help but feel, considering the casting of this show, that this is kind of a make good for Gugu having appeared in Morning Wars with one of the worst storylines that show had to offer, which really says something because, boy, has that show had a number of turkeys through its 2-season run so far.
I am getting very concerned about the creative choices of one Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine production company because she was
terrible.
She was behind the scathingly reviewed Where the Crawdads Sing, which had everyone on the edge of their seat hoping for brilliance, and it was well shy of that.
Yeah. I'm just loading up Hello Sunshine right now to get a list of the many crimes that company's committed so far to screen.
Tinkorama.
Yeah.
What else you got on your, have you been watching File?
Okay, so what else have I been watching as I look for the tab on my screen and get away from Reese Witherspoon's production company website? I've been, this is like an inadvertent thing. I was just looking for something late last night to watch and started watching Fresh Meat, which is, do you know Fresh Meat?
I don't know.
Okay, so this is the show from the creators of Peep Show, which is Sam Bain and Sam Armstrong.
Right.
Jesse Armstrong. Jesse Armstrong and Sam Bain, they created Peep Show.
Okay.
After Fresh Meat, they dissolved their writing partnership. I think they're still on good terms, but they just wanted to do different things. Jesse Armstrong went off and created some show called Succession. Not sure if you've heard of that one.
I know of it.
Yeah. But anyway, Fresh Meat is the show that they did between Peep Show and Succession, effectively. Okay. Yeah.
Funny,
so it's a very witty comedy about some university students in the UK. It's like their first year of uni, and hilarity sure to ensue. It's funny. It's very charming. It's got Charlotte Ritchie in it. It's got everything I'm looking for on a TV show.
Big plus. Love Charlotte Ritchie.
Yeah.
Then you went through
I also started doing a rewatch of Mad Men during the week, so I'm most of the way through the first season. Holds up just as well as it ever has. Great show.
How many times would that have been for you now?
This is about like maybe the fourth time I've rewatched it through.
Wow. Okay. That's commitment, baby. Well done.
Yeah, I like it. ER. I started watching the pilot for that last night as well, and I've done one rewatch of that through, and I'm tempted to keep on going after that first episode because boy, is that a good pilot.
Yes, it is. And what season does the Tarantino one come in? That was about 3, wasn't it?
One. So like that's, I'm going to say episode 20 of the first season.
Oh, first season. Okay, wow.
He may have come back for a second season episode as well. I'm not 100% sure, but he was definitely there for that first season.
For sure.
Yeah. And also on the train rides home from work in the afternoons, I've been rewatching the X-Men animated series from like 1991.
Wow, that's going way, way back. I love the animation from that period. That is just some gems of small screen animation there.
Yeah. Now, how have you been wasting your time, Simon?
Well, we couldn't do a whole screen watching without mentioning the Neighbours final episode. I watched it last night.
We could have.
I mean, technically we could have. But I think it's as a screen watching platform, we should acknowledge the incredible 37-year run of Neighbours. Having watched the full episode last night, that brings to a total of 1 episode of Neighbours that I've watched. I've never actually seen an episode of Neighbours in the past. I lived the Neighbours life vicariously through TV Week and the social pages, and just following whatever Kylie and Jason and Guy and Rebecca Elmaloglu were doing in the social pages.
Also, you know that Rebecca Elmaloglu was on Home and Away and not Neighbours, right?
Well, no, she was in the Neighbours finale last night.
Was she?
Yeah, absolutely, she was.
She in Neighbours?
Yeah, she was definitely in there and seemed to have quite the central role. So the Neighbours final episode was very much a getting the gang back together and raking over some old emotional coals as only soap operas can. There were phone-ins from overseas stars. Margot Robbie turned up very briefly and said hi via Zoom. It all became a rather low-key sort of street party, as you'd expect from the Ramsey Street gang. Very sweet seeing them all back together. Guy Pearce having quite a big role. The key storyline was between him and Annie Jones, as it was back in the day, with lots of flashback clips.
Playing Jane.
Playing Jane, yes. And they had some sweet scenes together. So even having never watched an episode, I still felt a tinge of melancholy, a certain warmth inside me, seeing these people back on screen together. But we bid them a fond farewell as they ride off into the Ramsey Street sunset. Thank you, Neighbours.
I feel like that feeling you had was Stockholm Syndrome.
May have been Stockholm Syndrome, may have been some pad thai noodles that I reheated as well. So
apparently Rebecca Elmaloglu was in the cast, so she joined in 2013.
Yeah. And there was an awful lot of moments where I thought, I don't know who any of these people is. A lot of the younger stars just didn't have the
star power of Rebecca Elmaloglu.
Yes, exactly. Or didn't have the enduring qualities of Guy Pearce or Jason Donovan or Kylie Minogue, who seemed a little bewildered by the whole thing and didn't really mingle with the rest of the cast and crew. They kind of watched the street party from the balcony, which seemed a bit odd. But hey, it is what it is. We've got to wait for is Home and Away still on air? Do we have to farewell that at sometime in the near future?
Well, eventually we will. I'm not sure that. I mean, I didn't farewell Neighbours, and I can't see me really farewelling Home and Away either, to be completely honest.
Are we weird because we've never seen an episode of it? They've been such.
Keep in mind that for the last, I don't know, we'll say like 5 years-ish, like it's been averaging maybe like about 90 to 110,000 people watching it every night. So the watching of this is well behind it.
But even back in the heyday when it was doing like 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock, it was the lead into an evening of television on the 3 major networks. I'm astounded that I never even sort of stumbled across it and sat in on it, but I've definitely never seen an episode of Home and Away.
I am surprised you haven't seen it, but might also be a bit of a product for your age. So when Home and Away, when Neighbours first started. Like when Neighbours first started, like you were probably in your very early 20s and you're probably not going to be hanging out to watch a daytime like soap opera in the early evenings. You probably had stuff to do. You probably had girls to see. You probably had, probably not girls.
Keep going. No, I was sitting at home watching television the whole time. Yeah, the pool. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was trudging home from the mine.
Yeah.
To watch the coal soot off me. Anyway, we have introduced a new segment. It's called Save the Date. We don't have a sting yet. Do you think we could pay for the Calendar Girl rights? Maybe we could put Calendar Girl in there by Neil Sedaka. On August 10, I Am Groot. The series premieres on Disney Plus, which, from what I can gather, are like short interstitial bits of programming. They're not long episodes.
Like it's about 4 to 6 short films starring Groot at various stages of Groot's life.
Okay. September 28, Blonde, starring Anna de Armas, from Australian director Andrew Dominique, comes to Netflix. Now, it's got an NC-17 US rating down to strong sexual content. And Dominique, he made Chopper, so he knows how to sort of bring the visuals and deliver the goods there. Striking trailer for Blonde that you had up on your newsletter earlier yesterday, I think.
I think this morning.
I think we're all looking forward to that. And on January 26, 2023, Cate Blanchett will be starring in a movie called Tar. This is the story of one of the greatest female conductors of all time. And it's the first film in a long time for director Todd Field. He made the movie Little Children many, many years ago, but that was a great film. So we're all excited to see Cate Blanchett bring some big acting as the leader of an orchestra.
Oh, orchestra. Sorry, I thought it was going to be about like identifying teenagers who hadn't paid for their tickets on the train.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yes, the conductor. She'd be good in it, though. If anyone could do that, Kate could. Yeah.
Possibly. Hey, Simon, what else happened this week in history?
Well, on July 31st, 1984, one Lisa Gibbons made her first appearance on Entertainment Tonight. Now, before there was an internet, we had to watch Entertainment Tonight to catch up on everything about Hollywood, all the goss, everything about movies and television. And she actually parodied herself through big sections of RoboCop. She was very funny in that as well. So God bless you, Lisa Gibbons, wherever you are.
August 1st, 1996, current COVID sufferer George R.R. Martin published A Game of Thrones, and was the first in a series of books under the label A Song of Ice and Fire.
On August 2nd, 2018, TikTok becomes available worldwide after merging with something called musical.ly.
It's pronounced Musically.
I've never even heard of that. Is that a thing? Is it still a thing, or did TikTok just overtake it?
No, essentially what happened, I don't know how much they technically it was merged. It was really the app that was Musically became TikTok.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, so basically Musically was orientated around 5-year-old girls singing into microphones their favorite songs. And they had a lot of licensing of music that existed.
I can see why TikTok would become that. On August 4th, 2014, Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog announced the end to their relationship. The news broke on Twitter, and we all remember where we were that day.
I don't think that was canon.
Pretty sad.
Oh, not happy birthday. No, not that. Please, no, not happy birthday.
July 29, 1932, Ted Cassidy, best known for playing Lurch from The Addams Family. He was born in Pittsburgh, and he passed away in 1979.
That's sad. You'll notice that all the people in our birthday segment tonight are from the 1930s. We're celebrating the 1930s. On August 1st, 1933, Dom DeLuise, the funny man from Cannonball Run and innumerable other shows. He was born in Brooklyn. I think he's still with us, is he? I'm not sure if he's gone.
I feel like Dom DeLuise has passed, but I'm not, who can really say for sure. August 2nd, 1939, Wes Craven, director of movies like Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Weaver.
He didn't do 5, I don't think. He did the first one and he did New Nightmare. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
What? He's too good to come back for the rest of them. Okay, director of Shocker, starring Mitch Pileggi, was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 2015.
And British funny man and broadcaster Terry Wogan was born 1938. He, for many years, was host of the Eurovision Song Contest, and he did the UK version of Blankety Blanks as well. He was born in Limerick, Ireland, and passed away in 2016. I always remember Terry Wogan because the goodies always referenced him, and Kenny Everett always made fun of him. So I knew of him before I knew exactly who he was. But a stalwart of British television, they say.
Well, Wogan outlived Dom DeLuise, who passed away in May 2009.
Oh, really? 2009? God, I wonder where I was that day. Didn't
Yeah.
see that news.
Yeah. Anyway, Simon Foster, let's get out of here. This has been interesting watching. People, if you've enjoyed this far into the mammoth podcast that has been, thank you very much for listening. As always, I've got a spiel that I've closed down the tab on, but if I could remember the spiel that I've repeated many times in this podcast, I'd be saying that...
I'll do it. You start your day with your free newsletter, Always Be Watching, over at alwaysbewatching.com, the big stories in TV, streaming, and film. And on Friday, you produce the Always Be Streaming newsletter, which recounts the big shows that launched that week.
And I'm going to read out Simon's one now, and I'm going to do this off the top of my head. If you want to read Simon's reviews and thoughts about movies, you can find that on the Facebook page or the website, which is at imabigstupidhead.com.au.
Hashtag stupidhead. That's right. And do check out our Screen Watching YouTube channel. There's lots of cool content there as well. I'm done for this week. I'm exhausted.
What is your website? It's like screen-space.net.edu.
That's right, yes. And look, I don't like to self-promote. Well, that's not entirely true. The tickets went on sale this week for the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival at the Event Cinemas website and at Cinema Nova website down in Melbourne. The tickets are up. The programs are live. Do buy tickets. Maybe turn up and say g'day.
All right, folks, this has been Screen Watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with more watching of screens.